Hello everybody, welcome back to Tom Reads Things. My name is Tom. I hope you're all very well, and welcome to another Vlogmas video. I'm really enjoying Vlogmas, loving it already, and we've only just begun. So today I am going to be doing my November wrap-up. So, November. I had a stonking reading month in November. I didn't read that many books actually, but the books that I did read, I really enjoyed. And it was all kicked off on Cozy Reading Night actually, when I started Andrew Michael Hurley's Starvaker. So this book is absolutely brilliant. It is really spooky, it's really eerie. And it's just absolutely fantastic. It was perfect for autumn cozy reading night and sort of Halloween and that kind of around reading it around that time. It follows the story of a man and a woman who move to the countryside into a kind of large house in the English countryside. I think it's set around the 1970s, but it doesn't actually explicitly say when it was set. And actually I found that a bit frustrating because I couldn't really picture what people should be wearing, what they should look like what the settings would look like. I found it, I wish every single book could start out with England 1995 or New York 2007 or something like that, just so that I can immediately picture it and I'm like, right, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. But that's probably just me, probably just a weird thing I have. Anyway, this I believe is set in the 1970s in England, and as I say, it follows a man and a woman who move to a country house with their young son. You find out quite early on in the book that the son passes away, and the book kind of explores the effect that this has on not only the husband and wife, the mother and father, but also the local community and the people that live in that community with them. There were some weird goings on before the son dies, and it kind of takes all of those weird goings on and explores them more after his death. I don't want to say too much because the way that the mother reacts to the death of the child especially is quite haunting and it's very sad. In a lot of ways, it's very sad, but it's also incredibly chilling, really. The mother's reaction especially is very unsettling. So yes, this was a perfect read for autumn cozy reading night and Halloween. It also, the father in this book also is kind of obsessed with finding out about the legend of a huge tree that was in the grounds of his home, and it kind of, the book kind of looks at his obsession with that, finding the kind of roots of this tree as well. It's really interesting. I haven't really read anything like this before, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading more by Andrew Michael Hurley. I believe he wrote a book called Devil's Day. Has anyone read that? Has anyone read this? Do let me know in the comments section down below, and do let me know what you thought of it. So the next book that I would like to talk about is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Oh, sorry, I've got a horrible mark on my finger. That's where I've lit the fire, sorry. So yes, The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Now, I've heard a lot about this on BookTube. I know that Simon over at Savage Reads really loved this book. He spoke about it in his video that he did with Tracy Chevalier. They were discussing it together. I'll link that video in the description box down below. So this follows the story of a young African-American man in, well, boy really, when the book starts, in 1960s, deep south of America. I believe it's Florida actually. And it explores his life growing up. It explores the school that he ends up going to. And the way that he is treated and his community is treated in the 1960s in the Deep South in the United States, which is obviously an incredibly turbulent time back then. So I struggled with this book, I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't enjoy it at all. I found it, I kind of understood what it was trying to do. It was trying to I felt it was trying to make people understand the hardships that people went through in 1960s America as an African American person, and I understand that, but I felt that the book lacked heart. I felt in a lot of the times it was just more of a kind of a list, almost. It read almost like a list of the horrible things that happened to people around that time and in those communities, and I felt like it didn't really get to the heart of what it was trying to say. The lead character, he was just really a vehicle to show you all of these negative things, and it didn't really. I don't really feel like we got to know him properly. I don't feel really like we got to know any of the characters properly. I feel like it's a very important subject matter, obviously, to explore. But I felt it could have been done so much better if there was just a bit more kind of internal monologue or characterization around the main character and some of the other characters as well. I found that, yeah, as I said, it was just really a narrative. He was really just a vehicle for the narrative, and it didn't really, I think because of that, it lost some of its pungency. So yeah, it was only a very short book, so it didn't take me long to get through, and it may just be me. I know a lot of people really rate this book and have really enjoyed it, so do pick it up if this does sound like something you would be interested in, but for me, it didn't live up to my expectations, unfortunately. The next book that I want to talk about was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it and was not expecting what I read at all, and that is The House Without Windows by Barbara Newell Follett Barbara Newell Follett and Jackie Morris. So this basically, you have to understand the context of how this book was written to fully appreciate it. This was written almost a century ago by Barbara Newell Follett, who was a young girl living in America. I believe it was America. Is it America? Yeah, think so. And she wrote this when she was 9. She was either 9 or 14, can't remember. Let's say 9. And it's basically an exploration of her own imagination, of a child's imagination. It's an amazing feminist exploration of nature. It follows the story of a young girl who I imagine Barbara Newell Follett, when she was writing this as a young girl, imagined to be herself. And she runs away from her family. Now, her family aren't really horrible or anything. She just decides she wants the freedom of not living in a house, hence the title, The House Without Windows. So she wants to live outside and in nature and be completely free, so she runs away and lives her life in nature. The different chapters take you through different landscapes that she lives in. She lives in a meadow, she lives in the mountains, she lives by the sea, and it takes you through her journey and all of the different animals that she meets and becomes friends with, and all of the different people actually that she meets as well. Now, she doesn't try to integrate herself with people in this book as a young child, and that I find absolutely incredible. It's a beautiful exploration of nature. The descriptions of mountains and of meadows and of glens and of shores and the ocean and cliffs and everything is just absolutely plush and brilliantly, vibrantly written in this book. Now, one thing to understand is you do have to realise the context of which this is written. It's written by a very young girl, not trying to be a kind of professional author. This is just her imagination pouring out of her mind onto the page. And because of that, it's not structured in a way that we would usually kind of accept, really, or that we would think would be good. It's quite childlike in its writing, obviously because it was written by a young child, but in that you find an innocence and a beauty and a purity in her imagination that you lose as you become an adult, because whenever you write as an adult, you're thinking of ultimately the end audience, but really this is just her pouring her imagination out onto the page. She doesn't care if it's structured well. She doesn't care how it's paced. She doesn't care about characterization. She doesn't care about any of that. She just cares about getting this amazing story out of her mind onto the page. And because of that, it's utterly wonderful. I really enjoyed this book, in case you couldn't tell. So yes, if this does sound like something you would be interested in, I think it's perfect for adults and children. It's a very quick read. So yeah, and look at that cover. It would make a gorgeous Christmas present. So yeah, do pick this up if that sounds at all interesting to you. Now then, the last book that I read in November, I'm actually still reading, I've just got a little bit left to go, is The Warlow Experiment by Alex Nathan. Now, I first found out about this book from Simon over at Savage Reads. He messaged me earlier in the year and he was like, I've just finished a book and it blew me away and I think you'd really, really, really enjoy it. And he was right. So well done for that, Simon. This follows the story of a wealthy gentleman in Georgian England in the late 18th century, late 1700s, and his name is Powys. And he decides that he wants to be an incredibly well-respected scientist. So he decides to carry out an experiment where he locks a gentleman or a man in his basement, basically, for, I think it's 7 years he wants to lock him in there for, and then to do an experiment and kind of monitor the condition of the human mind when there is no contact and no human interaction with anyone during those 7 years. He wants to understand what impact that has on the human mind, and through doing this experiment, he hopes to gain notoriety as an amazing scientist. During the time that the man is in his basement, the man's name is Warlow, Mr. Powys provides for Mr. Warlow's family, and he very quickly becomes entangled with Mr. Warlow's wife, and the story kind of goes on from there and looks at the effect that isolation is having on Mr. Warlow and the effect that the kind of relationship that he is having with Mr. Warlow's wife has on Powys, and that's kind of where I've got up to, really. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm really, really, really enjoying this. It reminds me a lot of it's a bit of a spooky if you like The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock, if you like that kind of plush writing, I think you'd really, really, really like this. I think anything set in the Georgian period gets my kind of ears pricked up anyway, because I think it was such a kind of interesting and intriguing and dark time, really. So yeah, this is a really, really, really great book. Again, look at the cover on it, wonderful. So yeah, do pick this up if it sounds interesting to you. And again, look at the cover. It would make a wonderful, wonderful Christmas present. Buy it. So there you go. That's my November wrap up. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back again tomorrow with another Vlogmas video. See you then. Thanks. Bye.